Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
You are about to listen to the Totally Super Awesome 80s Reboot Overdrive podcast.
This podcast is our fan tribute to the Incredible Hulk TV show. Be advised that has been exposed to radiation and we caution to listen at your own risk. You have now entered GammaCast.
And welcome to the GammaCast. I'm your host, Charlie the Professor Esser. And with me, as always, is the incomparable, the wonderful. Try to comparable her. You will find you are incapable of comparabling her because she is incomparable.
80s music girl.
Hello, 80s music girl. Always so glad to have you. Tonight's episode, Half Nelson. Season 4, Episode 16. First air date April 17th, 1981. On his arrival in Baltimore, David Bentley meets Buster Caldwell, a midget wrestler with a big mouth that gets them both in trouble. Directed by Barry Crane, written by Kenneth Johnson, of course, who developed it for TV, and Andrew Schneider. Okay, I have to, because this really shocked me when I went into Tommy Madden, who plays Buster Caldwell's character in this episode.
Right.
He has played a lot of various dwarves throughout the years. He was in the Muppet movie. He was in Working. He played a character by the name of Stretch Mooney in Simon and Simon between 1983 and 1988. But this really struck me. And it struck me because as I'm watching this episode, the actor, he seems very not comfortable acting. Maybe it's just he doesn't have a lot of subtlety to him. He's all big energy.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes it feel very much like a reading.
Yeah.
But, and this is what struck me, he played Little Bruno in the 1982 Swamp Thing, which was just after this, actually. That's his next credit.
Yeah.
And if you ever see the 1982 Swamp Thing, it's a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
And this character, because he becomes the dwarf because, the Swamp Thing formula enhances what is your base character, and whereas Bruno, who is a big physical guy, takes it, he becomes this little shriveled dwarf because at his nature he was this small guy. But when he becomes Little Bruno, he's actually showing this depth in this character that I did not see in this episode. So it was kind of really interesting to me because I'm watching this, I'm thinking, oh, is he supposed to be a, is he just some actual midget wrestler they got to play this character, or is he a real actor? And it looks like...
Yeah, you did get that.
But you know what? Here's what I'm going to say. This guy is like full of credits. This guy was working all the way up to 1998 was his last gig.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, he had a recurring character on Simon and Simon. He was General Xenos in Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. And, he had roles before this. So I actually think I'm going to have to blame that completely on the director. I think the director did not know how to use him. So, so I'm going to say, Barry Crane, that's your fault.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed the rest of it as well, but there was quite a few people that were acting.
Yes.
If you see what I mean. It was a little over the top, I'm kind of going, is this like the first time? Yeah, because when celebrities, if they're like a musician, and I always use this as an example because, you always got, singers who were the popular flavor of the month. and they would go in and they'd say, "Oh, let's put him on Simon and Simon, or let's put him on Matlock or whatever." And I'm sure somebody was standing behind Andy Griffith, with the damn cue cards going, "Say this next," because they're so uncomfortable and they're so out of place, acting when they're not used to it. And that's kind of how it felt. It was like a majority of the people, especially, and the lady too. And I've seen her in a ton of stuff.
Which one, Mitzi or
Yeah, Mitzi.
Mitzi, yeah. Yeah, she was Elaine Joyce.
Yeah, she's a great actress.
Yeah. She was the lead in the Broadway musicals in Sugar. Yeah, so I think we're going to say that this was all Barry Kane's fault. Because he had a lot of great talent. And yeah, she's in Days of Our Lives, Murder, She Wrote. Again, Simon and Simon. Lots of Love Boats. She was Alexandra in Mr. Merlin, one of my favorite Art Carney vehicles from the early '80s. That was like his last big break. Well, not big break because he was already broken years ago. He was Art Carney, for goodness sakes. There was, we have a very recognized, we had H.B. Haggerty as Gregor, who I was almost certain was the Iron Sheik. He was not the Iron Sheik, at least according to his IMDb. He was another guy. And he's not the guy from Mickey and Maude either. Or was he? No, he was the guy from Mickey and Maude. He was the guy from Mickey and Maude, who I also always confused with the Iron Sheik. And I still think, part of me still thinks that it was the Iron Sheik in Mickey and Maude. So anyway, but he was the guy from Mickey and Maude. He has played wrestlers because he's a big guy. One of my favorite things in this is that when he does fight Banner at the end, you get to see that he does not shave his back, which is a very rare thing among wrestlers of the day. So he was obviously from that last generation of the non-shaved-backed wrestlers. So let's get to our actual story tonight.
Sure.
Because we are going to get to one of my favorite scenes, which does not deal with any of these actors, but it is just the most awesome scene in this episode when we get to it in a minute. But we open up with David coming across our star attraction, Tommy Madden, Buster Caldwell, getting mugged. And David goes to try and intervene, but David, he doesn't want to get into a fight. He just says, "Hey, don't beat up that little guy." And they're like, and once again, someone tries to take David's wallet, and he's like, well, "Okay, there you go. There's my $5." And
this guy's poor.
Yeah, they are always so disappointed. It's like, really, we are trying to make a living out here mugging people, and you poor people keep on getting in our way.
Exactly. How dare you?
It takes just as much effort to rob a rich guy as a poor guy, and when you are robbing people and it winds up being poor, it's like, really? Anyway, now, of course, once the guys do run off, I was actually waiting for our first Hulk out there, but we didn't get it. But once the guys do run off, we do see Buster, and he starts doing his big talk, I had him right where I wanted him, and then he changes his tune. He's like, let's hang out. Let me help you out. Let me be a decent guy. Which again, like I said, I really do have to go back to this actor or this director, because I really think that the character had points, and I think that this actor, James Madden, could have easily handled those shifts, but they just wanted him to be a motor mouth.
Yeah.
Honestly, you know what I think? I'm going to say it, and I don't know this, but I wonder if Barry Crane had an issue with cocaine.
Really?
Yeah, because it's that whole just do the line, and having the actors kind of, or maybe James Madden had an issue with cocaine in this episode. I don't know.
Somebody was doing something.
I'm saying some coca was involved. That's all I'm saying. But he has this big motor mouth thing, and then and this is the thing, and this is like the plot point that is a little weird to me in this episode, is like immediately once they're back at the gym, everyone starts talking to Buster about the guys who just robbed the mob.
Yeah.
And Buster is all too happy to be in the mix and say,
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly who did it. I know exactly what happened. I'm totally in the mix on this. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're listening to this and you're like, you're saying you robbed the mob.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and I can get the idea like, oh yeah, you know, oh yeah, I heard about that. I can get ways to self-aggrandize yourself in that situation without just stepping right up saying, I'm the guy.
Yeah.
But I guess, you know, so again, maybe there's also an issue here where maybe the writing wasn't as strong as it could have been, you know?
Well, I don't know. Because you didn't see that issue with McGee, with Jack, or David.
Yeah.
You know, possibly because they'd been on the series for so long, they're like, yeah, I know how to do my own self, thank you.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, I think
everybody else, if you don't mind.
That might be, and not for nothing, that may be the thing, you know? I mean,
yeah.
It's entirely possible David and Jack have dealt with Mr. Crane before.
Yeah.
No, he likes the nose candy, and no to I'm just going to do my take the way I do my take. But this was actually the other thing. Speaking of David Banner, one of the other interesting credits in blanking on his name again. Tommy Madden's, not James Madden's. Tommy Madden's portfolio is he was in The Magician.
Was he?
Yes, and do you know who the star of The Magician was?
No.
Mr. Bill Bixby.
Mr. Bill Bixby. Wow.
People forget The Incredible Hulk is actually Bill Bixby's fourth major show. He was actually he was like basically the George Clooney of the late 70s when he got the job as David Banner.
Right.
You know, because he was in My Favorite Martian first. Then he had The Magician, and then I think he did Courtship of Eddie's Father.
Okay,
I think Courtship came after The Magician. And Courtship, of course, was...
I don't remember The Magician.
The Magician was only like for one season, maybe a season and a half. You know.
Yeah.
So this was it, but you know, but it did well. It had its following. It was a popular show. And you know, actually, now I'm actually going to pull up Bill Bixby and just see how many seasons The Magician ran. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Against the Odds, Incredible Hulk, Black Tales of the Unexpected. Oh yeah, you see that you know. He was in Rich Man, Poor Man. He was in Ironside, many episodes. The Magician ran from 1973 to 1974, so it was a one, but it looks like there were 22 episodes to it. You know.
Oh, okay.
You know, and that's the thing. Like some of these things they last a year, but there's like what would be like 4 seasons nowadays. You know?
Right.
It's like this. I'm sitting here like, oh, we're already at episode 14. I guess this is almost the season finale. It's like, nope, we're not even like halfway through. Yeah. Oh, he actually did an episode of Sledgehammer in 1987.
Love that show.
Oh, I gotta watch for that. You know. Yes, because Sledgehammer is still on MeTV. It's on Sunday nights at like 2 a.m. But
okay.
It's on my DVR. Yes. Anyway, so yeah, so Mitzi is clearly, because she wants this mob money that she is convinced. You know, and honestly, I gotta wonder: is it that Mitzi is that gullible? Or that if we assume that Buster is just that good of a braggart.
Yeah.
And we later again see Buster really getting poor David in trouble because he basically tells the waiter at the diner they go to eat at that David is the money launderer.
Fence's money. Really? You can just say money laundering, huh? Was that not a thing back in the early 80s?
I don't know. It might not have been as well understood of a term, money laundering.
Fence money.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know. Fencing money is weird, although, it makes sense if you say money laundering, because we're more familiar with that. But I remember back in the 80s watching Ripley's Believe It or Not, where they actually went to a money laundry, which was this guy who cleaned up silver dollars because it was for some fancy hotel, and they always wanted to have clean money, So, and
that makes sense.
they were having fun with the play on words of money laundry. But I know as a child at that time, I actually then went on with my life for a few years thinking that money laundry meant to wash money, to physically wash it. So, it wasn't as common a term of art at the time.
Right.
But yeah, so David basically gets in trouble. We see Buster gets invited to a party from what's her name? Was it Kelly or was it? Yeah, I think it was. Or was it Marsha? No, it was Marsha. Gets invited to Marsha's party, who is another, under 5 foot woman who is kind of sweet on Buster, though we're not entirely certain why. Because I guess this is the 70s, and you didn't have to be that amazing of a guy to be the romantic lead at the time. You just had to be a guy. But we go to the party and we get to see all the people there. We see we get to see David feel like the outcast because he's the guy who's freakishly tall in the room. But he plays it nicely. We can see that one guy who he's got the kind of you can see the party girl blonde wife who's like, ooh, now I got someone to change the light bulbs, and you can see he's not too keen on him. And this does come back because when David goes to get more ice, he gets jumped by our 2 mob guys who've been told he's the money launderer.
Yeah.
And he throws him over. They throw him into the little. I don't even know what you call that. I see it all the time in this city, but I don't know what you call that. That little sunken place, the sunken patio outside of the townhouse, where you often put your trash cans.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a technical term for it. We'll just call it the sunken patio.
Yes, and he falls down there, and then he hulks out and comes up, and we get this great, he basically scares the heck out of the mobsters, smashes some stuff. Just prior to that, when he's trying to get away from the mobsters, we see all the people running. Nobody wants to talk to him. We see the old guy who's sweeping up the steps just basically lock the door and say, I don't want any part of this. But what is cool is that after David has dispatched the bad guys, the Hulk is wandering around and he sees this couple from the party. And this is the thing that it makes for a great scene, but it's kind of out of character for the Hulk. Why is the Hulk picking up this woman? Yeah. I mean, it's it was a very strange thing for the Hulk to do, but it's worth it to me because then we get the other guy to do this whole Captain America thing where he grabs the garbage can lids and just whips it right at the Hulk's shins,
Yeah. Yeah, because that worked.
And I loved the idea that this guy who is, he's a little person, but, his wife is in danger. He is not going to shirk away. He is going to face a Hulk, to protect his wife. And that is man, you kind of think, man, you can do better than this blonde party girl, I mean, maybe she's rocking in other ways, but man, it's you are a catch guy, But what? Maybe he loves her for her craziness, Maybe he loves that she's a party girl. Because maybe she's a party girl, but she only parties with him.
There you go.
She's a party girl, but she comes home and parties with him. She likes to flirt. She likes to talk about the tall guys. But at the end of the day,
she's just a shorter version of Mitzi.
Yeah, she was cool. But I just love that scene. The guy takes the garbage can lid and just right in the shins. It was awesome.
Yeah.
No, after that scene, the rest of the episode's kind of downhill. But oh, I kid. But we do get back to you know, and of course, David, who's just used to people just jumping him for no good reason, doesn't think too much of the two guys who jumped him until at the end of it, when he is talking to Buster, after Buster basically talks to Mitzi, and Mitzi basically lays it all out to him. It's like, look, if you got money, honey, I got time. If you ain't got money, then what the heck are you bringing to the table?
Yeah.
Really, and cruel and mean, but this is that cathartic moment for Buster, and he realizes that and this is one of these things where I feel it's like a wasted moment, because it's like there was a kind of complex, interesting story that I think this actor probably could have handled had it been better directed. You know, but because the whole idea is that he's saying, I've been living a joke, and you get this idea that it's like if you feel like you live a joke, maybe it is best to be the one telling it than the one always that even if the joke's on you, it's better to be the one who tells the joke first.
Right.
Know? And that's sort of where he gets to, and he's talking to David, and and he's saying, everything's been a lie. I've been lying to you the whole time. To which you kind of get the feeling, David, like, yeah, I kind of got that.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh yeah, by the way, the reason those two guys jumped you probably because I've been telling people you're my money fence.
He got a little carried away with himself, I think.
But of course, after the Hulk's first show, Jack McGee shows up. He's talking to the guy who's sweeping. He's saying, "Yeah, I saw the guy. Why he never gets a sketch artist in?" With all these people who say, "Oh, I saw the guy," because it's like, medium hair, medium build,
Yeah. You just scratched half of Baltimore.
But you kind of figure that if he, and of course it's one of these things where it's like he can't do that because obviously if you get in the sketch artist, he's going to get someone who looks a lot like Banner, and it's all going to fall into place, And you can't have that happen in this story. So there's a lot of designed-in incompetence in Jack McGee for a guy who's as good of a reporter as Jack McGee is sometimes allowed to be. You realize there's a lot of designed-in incompetence to him.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving beyond that. So Jack McGee comes to the wrestling ring because, of course, the guy was like, oh, yeah, he was hanging out with the midget wrestler, and here's where you can find him. And so Jack McGee's got his hottest lead on David yet. And when David realizes Jack McGee's there, he puts on the wrestling mask. He's going to be the Dreadnought, and makes and I loved his wrestler persona. It was a really great bit for David to do. But then, of course, H.B. Haggerty comes in. Gregor, the Russian wrestler, comes in and says, you are not Dreadnought. Unless Dreadnought just lost about 50 pounds. And then Jack realizes that's John Doe, and he has to make a run for it. And you get to this scene with David in the ring with Gregor, and you see Gregor beating him up. And then we get the moment we've all been waiting for, the Hulk in the wrestling ring.
Yeah.
Yes, the Hulk throws Gregor into the top. And one of these moments, you always talk about, the Hulk doesn't kill, but it's like, man, if the Hulk doesn't kill, because the Hulk gets real lucky. Because if that guy hadn't grabbed that platform, he would have gotten very severely hurt there,
Yeah.
And not for nothing, it's good he could actually get himself up over that, because you could see that the audience wasn't particularly being helpful, dumping popcorn on his head.
No.
And the Hulk comes through. He saves Buster at the last minute because they're gonna set Buster because the mobsters are gonna set Buster on fire if he doesn't tell them what he knows, even though he's saying I don't know anything. No, really, I'm a big liar. Ask anyone.
Yeah.
But the Hulk comes in,
Yeah.
busts it all up, and yeah, he saves the day,
Which is great.
which is great. Well, that's what he's there for. And at the end, we hear Buster basically telling David after he comes back. And again, this is one of those moments where I think, where people like know David's secret, but they're not talking about it. You know? And I love the fact that, Buster makes the thing, I'm not going to talk to a reporter. Reporters always said my technique wasn't good enough. So, I'm not going to start talking to him now. And he says, I get what you were saying now about a lot of people are something they don't want to be, And that was nice. Because it's always nice when someone gets to share in David's secret, even if it's not overtly spoken.
Yeah.
And, Buster's going to go back to school. He says he might not get it to medical school, but because he was saying, he could have been a doctor, but then he decided to be a wrestler. He's gonna go. As we have said a few times in the boxer episode, that the moral of the story is give up on your dreams, kid. Go get a nice stable job.
There you go.
There you go. But you know what? Marsha had a nice stable job, obviously, and clearly, he wants that nice stable life. Him and Marsha, apparently is taking him back. So, yay, Marsha.
Yeah.
Marsha.
Marsha.
Any final thoughts on tonight's episode, 80s Music Girl?
Absolutely. One of my favorite character actors played the promoter, Joey Foreman. I love him in reoccurring episodes of The Monkees and other television favorites. Very interesting man, and to see him like as a regular person for change. You're like, what? No funny accent or costumes or anything. You're just gonna sit there and tell the guy how to be a better wrestler. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, that was good. That was neat.
Yeah, yeah, it was neat. And then to have the guy sweeping the stairs. I know he's got a name, but I loved how he was negotiating with Jack McGee. How about you give me $100 now, and you only have to give me 9,000 when you find him? It's like, where in God's green earth does that make any sense? It's upon the capture of the Hulk, not if I see it walking down the street. It's like, yeah, that's the Hulk. Okay, here's $9,000.
I believe that was Frederick Downs.
There you go.
He's listed as the porter. And that's what the guy who sweeps the stairs is called a porter. I know that because I used to work in property management.
Sweet.
And we always used to talk about, having to hire porters and difference between a porter and a super.
Yeah. The fact that everybody pretty much knows that somebody owes the mob money was kind of an amusing anecdote in itself. It's like you couldn't go anywhere with, hey, are you one of those guys that owes the mob money?
Well, it was because they knew that these wrestlers, knocked over, a gambling thing.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, so first off, if they know they were wrestlers, they all have to know who those wrestlers were. And obviously these are wrestlers that have skipped town at this point. And now the question is how do we track down these wrestlers? And, of course, we're going to focus on Buster because he's just talking so loud. But, like I say, clearly Buster talks loud all the time. It is surprising, very surprising that people take him seriously.
Yeah, and I don't think a whole lot of people do, including David. I don't think David believed half the stuff he said. Well, first of all, he was, he called him out first and foremost watching, one of his wrestling matches. Like, seriously, if you really would have went down on that guy's neck, like, he would have been able to get up. But hey, you want to believe this stuff is real, you go right.
Well,
whatever.
Honestly, and this is actually really interesting to me because as a kid, I gotta remember this is like at the start of the great WWF wrestling craze.
Oh yeah.
And you know, they didn't pull punches about the wrestling industry, and because they show them rehearsing the match, they show them discussing what are the moves that are going to be done in the match, you know. But
Yeah.
and then they also give. I thought Buster did a nice job giving the defense. It's like, hey, look, you know, you say it's not a real sport. You want to know the injuries I've had? You want to know what, you know, yeah, it may be choreographed, but, you know, that doesn't mean it doesn't take this massive physicality to do it, you know?
Absolutely.
You know, and I like that. So I really felt they did a great job threading the needle there on that wrestling fake or wrestling real. And then, of course, you get that nice bit at the end where, you know, Gregor really is wrestling David, you know?
Yeah, he wants to break some bones.
Yeah, that is 100% real. And of course, you know, that is one of the biggest things about wrestling is it's supposed to be choreographed. Doesn't mean it always is. That was like one of the with Andre the Giant, you know, and you know, every so often you get a guy in wrestling like Andre the Giant who certainly will play if the money's right, but if he decides he doesn't want to play that day, he can win any match he goes into because he's just got the power and is that good of a wrestler, you know? It's very hard to take a guy out like that. And so, and in this case, Gregor is the guy who is like, yeah, you know, if I don't feel like playing today, guess what? We're going to wrestle for real. And unfortunately for Gregor, that did not work out well for him because he didn't know he was wrestling a Hulk at the time.
Yeah, I like Jack who's like, you don't want to do that. No, this guy can be dangerous. No, don't do that. You know? And the announcer's like, I don't know. What are you, tag teaming now? It's like, how many? I don't even know what this is about, ladies and gentlemen. All these people aren't even supposed to be on the bill. But yet they're all here.
But it made for a great show. The audience loved it. They ate it up with a spoon. That was amazing. Okay. Rose, if people would like to talk to you about The Incredible Hulk and anything 80s related, because of course we know you are the unquestioned expert in all things 80s, how can they find you?
I am at 80s Music Girl on Twitter, 80s Music Girl on Facebook, and 80s Music Girl on Instagram.
Very good. And of course you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way, as we just started to do back in the archaic 80s, at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on Twitters, as I no longer get to live tweet The Incredible Hulk 7 o'clock on Saturdays, because it's no longer on MeTV. And that makes me very sad. Yes. But you can still follow me as I live tweet other things. When they have the opportunity to, at Charlie Esser, that's CharlieEssesser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. Thank you for hulking out with us once again, ladies and gentlemen. Please hulk out with us again.
We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80s Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80s Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80s Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at southgatemediagroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.